Alright, welcome in. I'm the Kodiak, and today I'm here to talk about 5 keys to the game against the Carolina Panthers and how the Broncos can end up getting to 5-3. But before we get into it, leave a like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're not already, drop a comment. Obviously helps me as I am a relatively new Broncos channel. Follow me on Twitter as well at Kodiak Broncos. Let's get right into it. So key number 1, take advantage of the other team's mess again. So Carolina is a disaster. Not only are you a 10-point favorite, which I don't even remember the last time the Broncos were that heavily favored, but this is definitely a game you should win. You took care of business against the Saints, so they proved that they could do it. And as I mentioned previously, that this is important for the Broncos to get over these sorts of games that could be perceived as trap games, because previous Broncos teams have lost games against teams that were very injured. You think back to 2017 against the Giants, 2021 against the Browns. It always hasn't come easy for the Broncos ever since Peyton Manning left. But with the New Orleans Saints, they were injured to death. You are going to get most of Carolina's best 53 on Sunday. Now, that does include quarterback Bryce Young, who has really struggled to get out of the gate. But I think at home is more dangerous than if this was on the road, because at home, you're more concerned about putting on a show for fans, or at least I don't know. I don't know if that's like their mindset or anything like that. But Sean Payton, he has this team doing a good job of not losing focus. They win the games that they should. The only game I really thought about that they lost, that they should have won in the Sean Payton era, was last year at home against New England on Christmas Eve. So yeah, once again, at home is more dangerous than if this was on the road, and potentially if the Broncos were staying down south for the next week. But regardless, it'll be nice to see the fans bring the Rocky Mountain Thunder on Sunday. Number 2, load the box and stop Carolina's run game. So the only real path to success in this game for Carolina is their rushing attack, because Chuba Hubbard is averaging 5.2 yards per carry, and Carolina has made a lot of upgrades to their interior over this offseason, and it's seemingly paid off. Like, they're not the worst. They don't have the worst O-line in the league anymore. And the run defense for the Broncos, they still have been good. You think back to, a week ago when they played the New Orleans Saints, they played a very good game. Alvin Kamara, 7 rushes for 10 yards. They looked awesome. But the run defense has been very suspect at times this year. It wasn't good in the first half against the Raiders. It wasn't really that good against the Chargers until the fourth quarter. And also, I don't know if Jonathan Brooks is going to be active for Carolina, but that is something to watch, and that is something to be aware of, because Carolina has either this week or next week to activate him from the NFI list. Since his torn ACL, he's on the NFI list because his torn ACL did happen at Texas. So that could be something to watch, but I don't think he's going to look nearly as explosive if they were to go with him, especially because he is coming off a really bad ACL injury. But regardless, the only real path to success for this game is Carolina being able to grind the clock and just being able to finish with a higher score than the Broncos at the very end of the game. So load the box, and what you need to do is you need to make Bryce Young make mistakes. On passing downs, you need to blitz the daylights out of him. And I don't really have that as one of my keys to the game, just because I expect the Broncos to take care of business with or without Surtain. Even though the Panthers do have Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette, they still have Bryce Young throwing the ball. And he has had a couple nice games throughout his NFL career, but this year it looks like he took a major step back from the 2 games that we've seen. And he also hasn't played in 5 or 6 weeks. So I expect him to be a little rusty naturally, just because we're not seeing Andy Dalton either. And ultimately, I expect the Carolina offense to not be very cohesive. I don't really expect them to have a big game through the air. And like I said, the only way that they could potentially make this an upset game is if they run the football. And number 3, you have to make Carolina drive the full length of the field. So our special teams have been awesome this year. I believe we're number 2 or number 3 in special teams DVOA, which is absolutely incredible, because I remember it wasn't too long ago, where 3 years ago, we had Tom McMahon as our special teams coach, and 2 years ago when we had Dwayne Stukes as our special teams coach. And our special teams was literally losing us games, had lost us a handful of games over that 2-year period. But hopefully the great punt coverage can hold up. We've done a great job at not allowing returns at all. We've done a great job of kickoff coverage and kick returns in general. And Marvin Mims and Tremont Smith are going to have to do their part on Sunday, because even if the Broncos offense stalls, okay, maybe you get to midfield and make Carolina go on like a 90, 95-yard drive. And they're probably, I would say their odds of scoring, if they start at their own 5-10, are very slim. Just because of the way that our team is built, and just because of the way Carolina is built, they are going to, if they get into a negative game script and they have to pass a lot, it's not going to look very good for the Carolina Panthers. So ultimately, this is another one where, the special teams just kind of has to take care of business and do what they've been doing all year. But with the offense, time to get into the offensive side of things. Number 4, you got to establish the run. Get the run game going early. And it's been much better lately over the past few games or so. After being really, really bad in the first 2 weeks, it looks like we are getting old flashes or flashes of old Javonte again, which has been absolutely great to see because we drafted him to be a difference maker at that position. And then he was a difference maker his rookie year. He was always running through guys. He was plowing through guys. He was always falling forward. He was always fighting for every yard. And we didn't see a lot of that from the point that he got back last year until like week 3 this year. I was just like, okay, Javonte's kind of cooked. But ever since week 4, ever since we played against the New York Jets, it looks like Javonte's been trusting that knee more. And if he can get, even back to 80, 90% of what we thought he could be when we drafted him, that would be absolutely incredible. So yeah, Javonte McLaughlin and Estime have all looked very good at points. But the one thing that we really, really need to work on is ball security, ball security, ball security. Javonte Williams had a fumble in the first half against the Chargers that all but took us out of the game. Audric Estime had that fumble last week against the Saints. Granted, it was in garbage time, and we ended up scoring a defensive touchdown on the next possession anyway. You can't gift your opponent stuff like that in the modern NFL. You think you're going to beat the Ravens and Chiefs in the next 2-3 weeks if you do stuff like that? Yeah, regardless, ball security, ball security, ball security. That is a huge, conversation topic that we're going to have to hone in on for the run game the rest of the year because it looks like they figured it out. But I don't know. So this doesn't need to be an outstanding game for Bo Nix, but you want to start fast because this is a get-right performance for his early game jitters. We've seen him not play very well in the first quarter ever since that Tampa game. He really hasn't had a good first quarter performance yet ever since that. And take the ball if you win the toss. And Nix, he doesn't have to be a world beater this game. Like I said, I've already mentioned that in my first point, but he must hold up his end of the bargain. He must play, conservative, ultra, how do I describe this? He needs to play conservative, but eventually we need to take a couple shots downfield. I would love to see him get going. I'd love to see him put things on tape so that teams can stay honest with it when it comes to respecting our passing game. And yeah, ultimately he must hold up his end of the bargain because if he doesn't, that is the other avenue for Carolina to win this game. The only real path I think they have to winning this game is if we turn the ball over a few times and they can just run the ball. So this needs to be a 53-man effort. Once again, this is a game that you should win. And taking care of business is something that Broncos teams have struggled with in years past. So yeah, that basically does it for me, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.